Welcome to Intersections. I'm so thrilled today to have as our guest Dave Dawe, who I've been doing some thinking and figuring, and I've known Dave for 50 years or more. And all that time, I have never known him not to be engaged in some aspect of St. John's Citadel. So Dave, welcome to Intersections, and we look forward to what you have to share with us today.
Nice to be here.
I know that the early years of your life was Corner Brook.
Right.
And you can reference that as you move through, if you wish, the impact of that fellowship in Corner Brook, what that may have had on your life. But you've spent the vast majority of your life here in St. John's.
In this core.
In this church, St. John's Citadel. And, just before we delve into that, you were a civil servant.
Many years.
For many years.
33 years, actually.
And I know what they say about that. You have to be civil and serve, right? When you retired, however many years ago, at that point you had a tenure as Queen's Printer for Newfoundland and Labrador. You've had a long work history in the production business.
Yeah, it started with Joey Smallwood, actually.
Did it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it was a very interesting time, and he became a good friend, actually. It's one little anecdote about Joey. I was at my brother-in-law's home with my wife for a Christmas dinner. His name is Osmond, not Dawe. And but middle of the afternoon, the phone rang, and my sister answered the phone, and she said, "It's for you, Dave." And I went to the phone, and this was Joey Smallwood. Now, how he found out that I was at Osmond's house, I'll never know.
Joey knew all.
And he never told me. He said, I need you now at Confederation Building. So I cut on my coat and went in, and he met me at the door, and we went down into the press room. And he said, is everybody away from it? Nobody here? I said, no. He said, okay, can you lock your doors? I said, yes. Locked the door, and we printed something. I don't know what it was I printed. I have no idea in the world. And it was done, and some press sheets that came out that were faulty. He took these and tore them up and put in his briefcase. And that was it. That was just one of the stories.
One of the stories. A long and varied career.
Oh, yes.
Dave, you've reached a rather important part of your life. You've lived long enough to be over 80.
I'll be 88 in 1 month's time.
My goodness.
Yeah, wow.
And you are one of our very valued senior members of this congregation. And we wanted to hear your voice on some of these issues so that we have it. And so that others can share in some of the wisdom that you have garnered around you over the years. So let's talk now a little bit about St. John's Citadel. Looking back over these years, you've seen a lot of change, you've seen a lot of coming and going.
Yeah.
What would you regard as some highlights in your life here at St. John's Citadel?
Wow. Well, I'll start at the beginning.
That's a good spot.
Well, okay. When we came to St. John's in 47, my father had been transferred here by the government, and actually it's very interesting. One of the main reasons they came here was to oversee the building of Emstree Estates, which was to get the people from downtown into some nice homes.
Okay. Yep.
That's why we came to St. John's.
Okay.
And so we came in July of 47, my mother and father and the three of us, and 3 kids. My father had been living here then for 2 years, going back and forth by train to Corner Brook. And he decided, he said, it's not fair for me to decide where we're going to worship. So we went as a family, we just traveled around to the different cores and whatnot. And we left Adelaide Street for the last. And we went there on a Sunday night. We went up to the front door and couldn't get inside the lobby because it was packed. we shouldered our way through. Eventually, they got a seat for us, and we went into this rather small, rickety place. And after the service was all over, we went home and sat down and had lunch that evening. And my dad said, "Okay, we've got to make a decision. We've been away a month now, looking around and whatnot. Where are we going to go?" And Mildred, my sister, older sister, myself said, "Well, I don't know about you, Dad, but we're going to Adelaide Street." He said, "That's all I want to hear. That's the most important part of it. You're teenagers almost now." And that's when it started.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was something about the people. It was the people. It was something about the people that just, we responded to it and never changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fast track a little bit now. Go down another few years down the road, and what else comes to your mind about something in St. John's Citadel? Well,
The big thing was, I think at that time, was Bram Hudson, really. It just came to mind now. He was enthusiastic about the youth work, so he got me involved in it. And I was the YP treasurer and whatnot, teaching classes
Right.
and stuff like that. And I mean, we spent more time in the evenings and weekends just fixing up the place than putting a bit of paint on here or there and whatnot. But Bram Hudson was the one who started, and very interesting, years afterwards, when my wife was transferred to St. John's, Bram worked downtown, and she was working at the headquarters down there.
Right.
And he came in and said, "My dear, we need you at St. John's Citadel," like that. And to make a long story short, she started coming to the Citadel, got involved with the youth, and we met and fell in love, and that was it, you know.
There you go. So that's really a beginning for you.
That was the beginning, and then one of the big highlights, of course, when we moved up in this area, was the youth work. I mean, our Sunday school was in the hundreds of kids. I mean, I spent my Saturdays, always Saturday was devoted to the White Bee Corps, and with Bram and his son, Walter, we would go up and we would work on the building, installing stuff for doing work. And it never stopped, actually. So I became treasurer, and Sunday afternoons after we had time, I spent enrolling little nickels and dimes. If we had a 50-cent piece, that was really something.
And in more recent years, Dave, what are some of the highlights for you here at the
The
Citadel?
highlights, well, the band, of course. I got involved with the band with Ron. And, the worship was the highlight for me. And the Easter musicals were a major thing. I mean, we worked at that, and we did things that were impossible to be done. You know, the first couple we had, the whole of the lighting was done. Walter, my son Rob, was just a little kid, and he would just take him behind me. All the lighting for our first musicals went in the trunk of my car. And I would have extension cords, 100-foot long extension cords, running from various plugs around the building. And one circuit would always break down. And I used to give a can of pop to a young fella to sit down by the control board. And every time it blew, he would, at that time, there was no fuse. They had a little button there. And he would reach up and push the button in again. And that's the way it was.
That's the way it was.
But that was good. That was good for the Corps. It was good for the people taking part, and good for the people outside coming in.
You referenced worship.
Yeah.
Now, talk to us a little bit about how meaningful worship is for you,
Yeah.
period,
Yeah.
but specifically worship at St. John's Citadel. What does that mean for you?
That's a good question. It's the most important thing for me. Still is. It was always a personal thing. I haven't thought about this. Worship at St. John's Citadel to me was always personal. And I responded to it. The choice of hymns, and the people, the older folk were they were such beautiful Christians, you know. What you saw is what you got, you know, and the nice thing about it, one of the things about it, I haven't thought about this, but one of the things about it is that I was never really down at all. I don't remember ever being down, but worship was the main thing for me. But if one old gentleman in the corps came along to me one day, he said, "You don't seem very happy today." I said, "Well," I said, "I'm having a little bit of problem in school and whatnot, and I'm unhappy with what's happening." And he prayed with me right then and there. You know, it's things like that, and a lot of things like that happens, you know.
You shared, I guess those are the sorts of things that cement a feeling and a relationship. And you shared with me previously about a time when there was illness in your family, and you were playing in the band, and there was
Yes.
a particular song that came up, and you really had to question God.
Yes,
And
I did.
But somebody reached out to you.
Yes.
Can you share that?
That was a major thing in my life. My dad was a very active man. You would have loved my father. Billy Dawe was worship. Even in Corner Brook, if you go back to Corner Brook now, I'll tell you a little story about Corner Brook. I had to go on business, and when I got there at the hotel, I found out that they were having a thing at the Arts Center that Salvation Army was. So I got in the taxi, went over, and it had started. And the gentleman was there. I said, "I'm from St. John's. I want to get a seat." He said, "Well," he said, "I run this place." He said, "And I've got a seat reserved for me. I've seen it come up," and I sat me in the seat. So during the intermission, the gentleman next to me, he said, "And who are you?" I said, "I'm Dave Dawe." He said, "And you're from St. John's?" I said, "Yes, but I was born here." He said, "Oh, what Dawe are you?" I said, "Well, Billy Dawe was my father." Well, he grabbed me, he hugged me, he cried. It was, and I said, "What's all this about?" He said, "Your father kept our family alive for one whole winter. And I lived with my father, and I didn't know anything about it."
Right,
That was my father.
right.
But anyway, going back to the
Back
story
to
you
the
asked.
story.
I came to the building here, and I just left my father at home. I just left my father at home, dying. But the deal was that I would go to the Corps, I'd write down everything that happened, and when I went home, then I would tell Dad everything about who testified, who prayed, what they said, and that was it. But this night, I just left him around 6 o'clock and in the evening, and I got in the car, and when I left, I said, "I hope he's alive when I come back." And I came up, got my trombone, got on the platform, played, and just before the sermon, they said, "We're going to have this sing. Come, let us all rejoice and sing, God is love."
It's okay.
It was, I says, "No, he's not. God is not love." And I got up, and there was the door right behind me on the platform, and I slipped out, went down, put my trombone away, as I thought for the last time. I went out, the car was parked on the side of the building. I got in the car, but I couldn't get away because somebody had blocked me in. So I just sat there. And after I don't know how long, the door opened up, and somebody came in. I looked, and it was one of our bandsmen. Sat down with me, and he stayed there. We didn't speak. We just sat there. I didn't resent it, but I was just in my own black world, you know. And all at once, the door opens up in the back, and somebody came out. This was the driver of this car. And he backed his car away, so I was able to move out. So I turn on the engine to back out. And as I did, the bandsman who sat down with me, all he said was, Dave, he said, you're not in this alone. That's all. We care. And he left and went up in the band. And so I drove home, and I was thinking about it afterwards. If he hadn't done that, I would have driven from the Citadel to Darling Street, thinking the most horrible thoughts about God being an unjust God and leaving my father was a saint to me to die this horrible death. But what I was thinking about was there was a young bandsman who came in and sat down by me and just wanted to be with me. And that's all I thought. And that was the turning point in my life, actually. And a couple of years afterwards, he died.
Very powerful story.
Yeah.
Very powerful.
His name was Walter Cornick.
Walter Cornick.
Walter Cornick.
Yeah, those from the Citadel over the years will recognize that name.
Yes.
Many would have known Walter.
Yeah.
You know, he was an educator here in the city.
He was, yeah.
And
his father was a brigadier.
He was, and Walter left us far too early.
Far too early.
No question.
But I probably am here right now because of him. Because I was angry.
That in itself is quite a testimony.
Isn't
it? It is. So Dave, looking back over the years that you've journeyed through life, and here in this city and here in this church community, and talking about how our lives and our faith intersect. Can you, I know you well enough to know that you have a very strong faith life, which has matured over the years. It doesn't mean that it's been A1 all the time and you haven't had setbacks. It doesn't mean that. But it does mean it's been a constant. Can you talk a little bit about how having faith in your life as a constant dimension helps you deal with every day?
It's this is emotional for me. Okay.
Of course.
You know, as you know, I lost my wife 6 years ago.
I know.
And my wife and I we fell in love, and there was no question about it at all. I still love her, and she's, you know, I fell apart after. Well, you know that, I'm sure, but I had a rough time, but not with my faith. My faith was not, but the fact is that she was gone, and I had a rough time. I found it very difficult to come to church. It killed me, and not because of lack of faith. In fact, I'm the most thankful person on earth. I'll take second place to nobody on that. I love the Lord. I always did, and I never questioned him about it. I did say, Lord, you know, it would have been much better or easier for me if you had taken me instead of her. But he knows what he's doing, and you know, I
He's
have
got the big picture.
Yeah, and but I had a rough time. Yeah. I really did, and but there again, the Lord just interceded. I was at the hospital, and one of the doctors came in one morning. She said, can I talk to you for outside the door for a minute? I said, sure. And so when I went out, she said, I'm a little bit concerned. I said, well, I said, I know, so am I. She said, no, I'm not concerned about your wife, Edna. I'm concerned about you. I said, oh, I'm fine. I said, things are going great. Well, she said, I'm going to give you a card. And she says, when all this is over, keep this in your wallet and dial this number. And I did. And one day when things were really black, really after Edna passed away and I was sitting home, I said, this is not right. I'm a Christian. I can't allow this this is not my life. This is not me. So I remembered this thing, and I got the number and phoned and left the message there, and within a minute or two the phone rang. This was this man. And I said, that was a quick response. He said, well, when I heard your voice, he said, I've got to find that man. He's in trouble. And anyway, we became really good friends. He was the government's person looking after grief and stuff like this, and still is. And we became really good friends, I must say. You know, but my problem then was getting back to the Corps. So I'd slip in with this before the service. Well, first of all, I went to other places, but no, I had to get back home. And I'd slip in after the service started, and I'd slip out before it was over. And I did that for a while, and then eventually I was able to come in. I missed the service, you know, I really did.
So these days, you've crossed over some of those humps, and you know, Edna will always be missed by you, and it's still an integral part, always will be, of your life.
Yes.
But you know, you have been able to put that in a perspective. Mm-hmm. And so every day now, you wake up to a new day, mm-hmm. and new opportunities, challenges. Yeah. How does faith play a role in that for you?
Pardon?
How does faith play a role in that for you? Every day. It's everything in my life. Before I go to bed, somebody said, "Do you pray?" I said, "Well, I don't stop praying." You know, I mean, I talk to the Lord all the time. I mean, you're on speed dial with the Lord, are you? Mm-hmm. You're on speed dial with the Lord.
Speed dial with the Lord. I'm driving along in the car, and we have a chat. And I can't imagine people who don't have the Lord in their lives. I can't even imagine what they're going through. You know, now the Lord uses other people too. You know, I had several people that come to me, and I hope you don't mind me speaking about you, but I remember one day in particular, you just came in, and I was sitting in the living room. I was sitting in the living room quite a lot. Just sit down there, and I wasn't feeling sorry for myself. I was hurt. You know, I was hurt, and I missed her a lot. But you came in, you sat down, you didn't say very much. I don't know if you said hardly anything, really. The first time there, we just sat down, and I just was there. It was pleasant. But before you left, you said, "Do you mind if I pray with you?" I said, "Not at all." And again, there was another Walter Cornick thing. You just left and went on, but then I reveled in that prayer for the next 2 hours, you know, and there's things like that. And even in the Corps, one thing I really appreciated with this Corps, and it was the only thing about it a few weeks ago, I needed my space. I didn't want to be overwhelmed. I was in a delicate position, and I hate to say that I was. And I think I'm a strong person, and in some ways I am, but in some ways I'm a weakling, you know. But the people, when they came in, they didn't smother me at all. They stayed away. They would wave. They would nod like this, but they never. And they let me set the pace, and that was important.
Yes,
it was very important for me.
Good,
because if they had, I would have been smothered, and I would have run away.
Dave, we're going to wrap this interview up in a moment, but just to say, by way of recap, that for many, many years you have been a strength to so many. And there are many who can point to you as someone with a listening ear, a kind word, an encouraging word. So to see that you have been able to deal with what has been dealt to you, mm-hmm. and have been able to come out the other end, recognizing obviously that this is through your dependence on the Lord and through your strong faith, that here you are now able to still carry on and join us here for worship, which is wonderful. And, you know, you're still a blessing to so many. And through this little opportunity today, there will be people who will hear your story and can relate, even those that don't know you. They'll know your circumstance, and they can relate to something in their lives. And we hope that that will speak deeply into their lives just because of you being here today and sharing with us in this way. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that, but I tell you, I would not like, I can't even think of what I would be but for this Corps. I really don't. It's been a blessing for me over the years, and it really has been. It's, you know, and we've had some wonderful, and we have wonderful people here.
Yes.
But it's a home. When I come here, I'm home. It's.
I've heard that earlier today from some other people.
Is that right? Eh?
Yeah.
I can't wait for next week to start, so we get away from not necessarily the mask exactly, but just coming in to meet. I mean, the foyer. When we designed this building, one of the big things. I was on the building committee, and one of the things I was for a large foyer, so people can meet. That's the heart of the place, really. And I love when I come out of the service. I love when I come out and see the people are thronged around and going in, and that warms my heart.
Well, you've warmed ours today. Thanks again, Dave, for being here. Appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you very much.